all of the different artwork from all of the booklets from all around the world. So this video was dumb, and I was like, ah, man, I could have saved you so much time and heartache.
I was like, oh, I had it on a background noise.
it wasn't really worth it. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting one at least. Please don't email me saying like, this was a waste of my time. I'm telling you right off the bat, it might be, but it might also be really interesting to you.
You'll have a brainstorm and you'll solve the mystery.
It's also possible.
You'll be hella famous.
Totally possible. Yeah. All of that having been said, we're gonna dive into theories, but first we're gonna take a quick break.
You have $100 in your pocket. Bobby asks to borrow $39 and says he will pay you back at a daily compound interest rate of 5.32% over the next 17 days. When Bobby pays you back, how much money will you have earned? It doesn't matter, because you're saving for college, and Bobby is notorious for never paying anyone back. What does that have to do with today's sponsor? Well, making sure you don't turn into Bobby, that's what. Are you considering going to college? Whether you're attending for the first time or going back to complete your degree, there are 3 common financial aid mistakes most students make that you can avoid. Discover them and Southern New Hampshire University by texting DIRECT, D-I-R-E-C-T, to 554433. Founded in 1932, SNHU's mission has been to make higher education accessible and affordable for everyone. They're devoted to learning, not profit, so they've made their New England campus available to the entire world by offering complete degree programs online. While tuition is skyrocketing across the country, SNHU hasn't raised their online tuition in years. When you choose to get your education, you owe it to yourself to avoid the top 3 financial aid mistakes. Learn about SNHU plus the top 3 financial aid mistakes and how to avoid them by texting DIRECT, D-I-R-E-C-T, to 554433. That's DIRECT to 554433. It's in your best interest. Get it? Interest, as in interest rate? You'll get it in a couple of years.
And we're back. Theory number 1 would be it's just an internet troll.
Yeah.
But as previously mentioned, I don't think that's a very plausible theory, just given the light show that happened. I would think that it would be at least somebody connected with it. Though, as my wonderful fiance pointed out, he said, oh, it could still be a troll. It just happens that troll is like the lighting designer or knows the lighting designer.
Works at that.
That's what I was thinking.
I was going to go there too. He works there or knows. I mean, they hired kids to run the frickin' gates. This is the middle of the show. The kid could have had access for a while to go in and just play with something and change it if they know how that system works.
And had access. I will tell you from working at venues for events, not of this caliber, but of lesser caliber, so it would probably likely be even heightened. It would be hard for somebody to gain access to that without the proper security.
You would think they would not let somebody go in there and mess with their gear. You know, it's kind of vitally important. That's
but if it were the lighting designer or
somebody on
staff, that could be possible. Sure.
Yeah,
totally. So okay, fine.
Next up, the 7-hour theory?
Well, no, I was just going to follow up by saying the other thing is that I saw in a couple places, not all the places, but a couple places, that some of the re-released mini discs and other, CDs that were being re-released after this whole Publius Enigma thing reportedly had in the artwork, like there was a picture of a rock wall that had Enigma written in it, or like there's a picture of a field and there was like Publius like hidden in the grains, which I don't know how much I believe that. I saw the pictures that these people were talking about, and I agree that in the pictures that they were showing online it looked like that. However, I do not believe that these people would have been above photoshopping them themselves and then putting them out there for public consumption.
You didn't go out and buy yourself some Pink Floyd.
Well, even if I did, the argument is always like, oh, well, you just didn't get the right copy, right? It's that same thing with the Aladdin films, some of them that had to be recalled because the animators had put like sex.
Oh, and then the Little Mermaid.
With the castle
yes.
thing. Right, so
with the argument, very upright castle.
Yeah, so the argument against those when you say like, well, my copy didn't have it, is they're like, you just didn't get the right copy. copy, right? So that would be the same argument there. But
Wasn't the whole Little Mermaid castle thing actually just an urban legend? I think that didn't actually happen.
see, that's exactly what I'm saying. Is that like it would be very easy to say to somebody who says, "Oh yeah, I had that copy." Well, they say, I had that copy, and you'd say, well, I didn't have that copy. Nobody I knows except for you had that copy, and they'd say, well, you just had your good copies then, right? And then all of the pictures online are just photoshops.
Oh, yeah.
Super easy to do. So
it's hard to believe, actually, animators would go to that much trouble. I mean, animation, especially back in the old days, was a pretty labor-intensive process. Back when he made those movies.
I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me that much that they... I mean, there's some of the jokes they hide on in current kids' movies.
Oh, yeah. They're very
adult. So
they are.
It wouldn't surprise me too terribly much. But I don't think it's just random troll on the internet that is responsible for this, but it's possible.
I think it's some kind of troll, but maybe not an internet troll.
I don't think it's just
it was a Pink Floyd troll. Yeah.
Next theory is the one that I spent a long time learning about, because at the beginning of this whole
the YouTube
grueling experience, this person, David Valentin, said, oh, the answer to this is spiritual enlightenment. And I thought, great, I'm really interested to see how this is going to pan out. But no, it turns out that theory is actually about possession. I have a quote from one of his movies. I'm going to say it right now. The Division Bell is literally an album whose songs incorporate themselves together to describe the process the spirit took in possessing the listener. Unquote. I didn't say quote at the beginning, but it's quote. It's quote. That's his theory, is that actually this entire album is about how Pink Floyd possesses their listeners.
Oh, is that what he's saying? What he's saying, the spirit? Is he saying the spirit?
Nope.
By the spirit, does he mean just your own soul possessing your body?
Nope.
The spirit of the band?
Not even spirit.
The music?
It means the actual band members are physically possessing.
So all 5 of them are in me at once?
Yeah.
Weird.
I know. And he says that actually this is something that most artists do, is they possess their listeners. And I should clarify that it may be worth going and watching this for you guys to understand this. I should clarify, this is not just like the spirit of the music, it's so good, it possesses me, it overwhelms me. No. This is an actual physical overtake of your nervous system and body that these people are capable of doing through their music, through you listening to their music, according to this theory.
So don't drive and listen to Pink Floyd, because they'll take over and they may not be very good drivers.
And they'll take over and they'll deliberately crash the car.
Yeah, and so the argument of me being able to say, well, listen, dude, I listened to Division Bell and I didn't get possessed is well, okay,
maybe
so it describes exactly the situation and how it has to be in order for the possession to take place. So maybe you did dim the lights when the artist told you to dim the lights so you were able to not get possessed. Or maybe you looked away so you were able to not. And so again, it's that, self-confirmation of, what? I don't even know what's going on, really.
Working in an echo chamber.
Kind of, yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind, though, tie this in exactly to the Enigma mystery.
So the Enigma mystery is, thank you, because I spent so much time in this that I didn't even tie it in. The whole Enigma mystery is pointing you towards analyzing the lyrics of the Division Bell. And according to this theory, there's a silence triad, which is 3 of the songs that tie together. I should clarify. On this album, there are 2 of the tracks are just instrumental.
Yeah.
And then there's the silence triad. And then of that triad, 3 of the songs, I wish this was like a physical thing so I could be showing you guys, the listeners. But basically there's 2 songs that are the horizontal
bar of the pyramid,
and then there's the third. And from that third one, the other 2 songs on the album are all describing the same event, these 3 songs. So it's a triad.
It's a major interpretation of the lyrics.
It is. Embarrassingly enough, I can kind of get there with the explanation of how these all kind of get together, because there are actually recurring themes within the lyrics in all of the different songs. There are literally phrases recycled over and over again in different songs on the album that seem to kind of describe the same sort of thing. And now Pink Floyd, for, be a fan or not, they are not lazy artists.
No.
They may have become lazy artists by 94, but I can get behind the thought process. I don't buy it, but I can understand where the thought process comes in of saying, like, listen, these are almost verbatim copy-paste lyrics from one song to another. Therefore, they must be describing a similar thing. There must be some reason for that.
Then you could say the same thing about Straight Outta Compton.
Well, to be honest,
the same phrases, same
but here's the thing. Okay, but here's the thing. But this is where you're not listening to me, because I'm saying that this theory stipulates that every single recording artist to ever have existed does this exact same thing. The trick to this is that the division bell is meant to expose it.
Expose this trick?
Yeah. To expose the fact that artists are possessing their listeners.
I see. But here's the problem I have with this theory.
I can't defend this theory very well.
First of all, it has there really is no tie-in to the actual. I mean, that's the problem I have with actually this mystery. The enigma, the mystery that you're supposed to solve, well, nobody ever says what it is. You don't know what it is. It's how can you solve a riddle when you don't know what it is? I mean, and
isn't that what a riddle is?
Well, no. I mean, but usually a riddle has a beginning and a middle and an ending.
Fair enough. Yeah.
In this particular case, the guy refers to a mystery, but it doesn't tell you what the mystery is. And so I guess what you're saying, this guy was saying, is that the contest is to say, listen hard to these lyrics, and the true meaning will pop out at you.
Yeah.
And that is the mystery of what's in these lyrics. But of course, that's all subjective because.
Well, no, the mystery is, I mean, there's a reported tangible prize at the end when you solve the mystery of the division bell, right?
Okay.
And a lot of listeners stipulated, and we'll talk more about this later on in the theories, but a lot of fans said, well, obviously we have to travel to a physical location to physically retrieve a prize that has been hidden somewhere, quote unquote, secreted away, to quote Publius. But this theory stipulates that the prize is actually solving this riddle that's this larger concept. I cannot defend it at all. I can see parts of it, I can get to parts of it, but I also think describing the same thing over 3 or 4 different songs on an album is just great album making. You know, just telling a story from multiple different angles is just great storytelling. I don't think it's anything nefarious or anything like that.
Or anything like that.
No, so I can get behind the idea of, there's an actual, continuum of like, this song is leading up to the events that's happening in these 3 songs from 3 different angles, and then this is the aftermath. Totally, I can totally get there, but I can't get to the part where it's like, and then it was spiritual possession, man. Like, I can't get there. I can't. It's not even spiritual. It's possession. I can't get there. I'm so sorry.
I can't even get halfway there, to be honest with you. I think.
But he's not the only one who's come up with this kind of idea. I mean, I saw a whole bunch of stuff where people were like, "It's all about connection, man, and it's one world and one love and one people." And that's what it's all about.
I was gonna say
hate those people.
I don't even understand this one, but somebody else stipulated that actually the prize is feedback and control. I couldn't wrap my head around this one. I'm only putting it out there because you'll see it out there, but I can just say that this person thinks that instead of actual possession, the solving of the riddle is feedback.
Feedback.
The word feedback.
Okay.
I can't get there.
Well, that feedback can be useful, I suppose.
Yeah. I don't know. There is a connection, interestingly, to Douglas Adams.
Is this another theory we're talking about here?
It's kind of an addition.
It's a weird bit of more information on the whole enigma. Like maybe its source?
Yeah, maybe the source. Maybe Douglas Adams is responsible for the whole thing. So yeah, I guess it is a different theory in general.
I think if Douglas Adams had been involved in this, it would have been funnier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, so there's this
much better,
really interesting quote from Douglas Adams. He did what I would call an AMA on a Usenet forum in 2000 on the Douglas Adams fan.
And by the way, we're talking about the Hitchhiker's Guide author Douglas Adams.
Yeah, Doctor Who, Douglas Adams.
Just so everybody knows.
Yeah. So he's actually responsible. He has credit on the album because he is reportedly responsible for naming the album.
Mm-hmm.
David Gilmour had asked him to kind of look at some lyrics and stuff like that as well. I don't know. There's some speculation with him being involved in it. The speculation is that, well, maybe he was responsible for the whole concept behind. He was actually responsible for the whole concept behind the album in totality, basically, that he had essentially written the lyrics and that he had named the album, and then he came up with this sort of prize thing so that he would be responsible for the concept behind it all.
Not necessarily its execution.
Not necessarily its execution, but I which I guess would more explain why there would be some really crazy interpretations of it, but I don't think he's actually responsible for most of it, so I don't really know.
No, I agree with Joe that if Adams had been involved in that way,
Yeah,
it would have been much cleverer.
his style is pretty unmistakable. Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. But I wanted to throw that in there because I thought it was interesting. I didn't really know that he was, that he was even involved with Pink Floyd.
Well, he was
I
involved
didn't
with a
know that,
number of
yeah.
bands,
Yeah,
apparently.
apparently he was like a huge rockhead. How do you say that? Markov chain generator? Because it's, that's the ergo of my life. Or ergot.
Ergot.
Oh, that's your go-to
Yeah.
internet mystery answer.
But it's kind of an interesting idea of what if somebody just fed all of the lyrics of the Division Bell into a Markov chain generator. It would help explain all of the weird typos and stuff like that, and the simultaneous reposting. The posts weren't necessarily, they got longer as you go through the timeline, and they don't necessarily become more coherent. But I don't know if I really
Yeah, I mean,
buy it.
that's...
It's one of those things where it's like, I had the idea, so I had to add it, but also, like...
The problem
it's
with
not a
this
very
theory is that Markov chains, when they have access to a rather large library of words, have a hard time stringing sensible sentences together, and then if you only feed it the lyrics from 11 or 12 songs, it's a very small pool of words because most of those words are repeated, so it's got a much it's not enough words for it to have done even a remotely comprehensible job.
Well, maybe they fed him the Markov chain from everything Pink Floyd ever did.
Yeah.
Maybe,
Yeah.
but then the
Or
word
maybe, and also
it didn't
everything.
talk about the wall, so
That's a good
Yeah.
point. No, I'm thinking the Markov chain. Just remember, this is 1994 too. Markov chains existed, but at the same time, I don't know if Pink Floyd and the gang were all that technologically advanced to where they think about doing something like that rather than
Oh,
just
I would
scribbling some
stipulate
things out
that it was
themselves.
just like that was an extension of the troll, that it was just some random person online. But again, the light show. That's my big holdup with saying it was just like some random person.
That's a good
I just
point.
still, man, I mean, the whole thing about Pink Floyd is they figured out very early on that they could go on big solos and they could use crazy light setups and big laser shows and, like you said, make this kind of giant experience. So I don't see it as being such a stretch as somebody saying, hey, dude, have you seen this crap? You should just put it somewhere in there. It's like, go ahead and do it. I mean, I could just totally see that being the case.
No, it's
Yeah.
entirely possible. Yeah, they saw that crap and they thought, hey, let's have some fun, like you said. I
Yeah.
totally see that.
And then the
happening.
next show, the person who does it, hey, you want that in there again? No.
Yeah.
I was just that was dumb. We shouldn't have done it. I don't care. Put it back to normal.
Totally. Next theory is that it was an actual physical treasure. And
Right.
I found this little snippet on Reddit.
Oh, what the reward is?
Well, maybe where it is. And this user posted that some of us still chip away at this every once in a while. The page numbers of the Division Bell booklet contain hidden binary code. A 0 for every even numbered page and a 1 for every odd numbered page. Stop looking at me like that. Coupled with the dual heads on page 11, it winds up pointing to the date of the first armistice, November 11th, 1918. The last of the Publius posts promised 2 clues that would lead to a physical location that needed to be visited. A reference to the page numbers holding great significance was the first clue. The second clue that was never given. The anonymous remailer that Publius was using was shut down due to an, quote, unrelated circumstance.
We never actually specified that. Oops.
Oh,
The Usenet eventually shut down, not too long after this whole thing got going, right? How long after this did it? I actually don't remember the date that Usenet got shut down.
Well, it was that
Oh,
particular
I don't know.
anonymous server that he was or she was
Not
using.
the entire thing, right?
It- yeah,
right,
Usenet was
but when did
still-
this server? Do you remember?
I don't, to be honest.
I
with you.
suddenly can't remember if it was months or years later.
I thought it was years later. but
Okay, so it
could
wasn't
have been.
a 1-2
I don't
scenario.
think so,
Okay,
no.
I interrupted your Reddit
That's okay.
retelling.
This Reddit retelling is my best guess is that something was hidden at the glade of the
Armistice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The location where Germany surrendered in World War I and where France surrendered at World War II. Of course, that would have been 21 years ago. No telling what it would be or even if it were still there.
Sure, it was never there because, I mean, there's no point in hiding a treasure when people have no possible way of understanding how to find the treasure because all they've ever done is made vague references
Yeah.
to a mystery which may or may not exist.
I will say the one
That's
interesting
it.
thing, I don't know if you got a chance to actually go through all of the booklet artwork, but at least in the United States, original release of the Division Bell, the page numbers were on little heads.
They
And-
look like the heads from Easter Island.
Well, they look like the heads on the cover.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm giving people who don't know what the heads look like. They look like the heads from Easter Island.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, they do. But the page numbers were on little heads, and some of them there was no consistent placement on the page.
Right.
And each number was in a different language, and some of the heads were transparent, and some of them were like bright orange, and some of them were black, and one of them had like a cutout of the next page's word under the white writing. So I mean, there was like a lot of variance. So
But that varied from country to country as well.
it did, for sure, but I think it was interesting, certainly, that there's some reference to the page numbers, and I think it's even more interesting that some people were like, yeah, obviously it's the binary, instead of, like, looking into the crazy page numbering system that...
Well, part of the
existed.
page numbering was in reference to, God, there was one that was in, I want to say it was in Indian? What is the language in India?
Mostly Hindu.
Hindi, thank you.
Yeah.
And it was written in that based on the image that was on the page. Like, that seemed to be, from what I understood in the reading, that was the impetus of why this one was in this language and this one was in something different.
Some of them, but the color scheme was different,
but
the
yeah, it was
orientation
all-
was,
but again,
different. But again, it's artistic.
It's artistic and it varies by country because
Yeah.
that was the mirror ball page in one of the books. The words are on an arc that follow the ball, and on the other countries they're square. So
Yeah.
it's inconsistent.
Well, and
Agreed.
I mean, there's all kinds of like weird things going on in the artwork there. You could read all kinds of stuff in all kinds of things.
Oh, yeah.
In the absence of the actual proof of any existence of a mystery at all, given that nobody's given us a clue what the mystery even is. Again, this is the problem I have with this story. Not that I have a problem with you, Devin, at all, or with
Okay.
Pink Floyd. I love Pink Floyd, but this guy kept referring to a mystery. He never told us. He never gave us the tiniest hint of what the mystery even was.
Fair enough.
And that's the problem that I have with this.
Okay, Steve, I'm sorry. I see your...
My book
Yeah, the book that we're going to sell for like $10 million.
that you're gonna burn.
I'll probably try to sell it. I'll just steal it from you and not tell you guys that I'm
Mostly
gonna...
like, dear diary, had my first kiss today. Yeah.
It was great. But so that must mean you have something you want to add to this.
Well, I didn't see it in your stuff. There is out there? God, I cannot think of the name of the website now, but it's got Pink Floyd in the name. But there's the guy Albert Moogly. Do you remember him?
Yeah.
So this guy has these huge writings talking about how he has been involved with the band, almost as if he was a silent member in the band. It sounded like he started out more of a roadie and then moved up through the ranks with them. But he tells this story about how, oh God, who is it? It's Mason.
Nick Mason?
Nick Mason, thank you. I think it's Nick Mason came up with this crazy code because he was mixing languages to try and get everybody to know that Moogly was in the background and was the secret partner and helped with all the lyrics. And if you translated it and figured it out, you would figure out that it was I can't remember what he called himself. His name is Albert Moogly, but it was, the Moogie or something. And then he went on to say that Stephen Hawking wrote the band and he had cracked the code, but they couldn't tell Hawking because then it would all come out.
Sounds pretty legit.
Oh,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, just as legit as the story he told where he lost all the gear for the band in the river and then hid the van and punched himself a couple of times, and they believe that he'd been beat up.
Actually, reading all this stuff, and I've gone through quite a bit of it, actually starts to make all the fandom surrounding Princess Di and the paparazzi and all that seem almost rational.
Yes. Correct.
Yeah.
So the last theory we have, do either of you have any theories that you want to add?
Oh, no,
prior
go
to
ahead.
this?
No, I think this whole thing is just interpretation of lyrics, so...
The last theory we have is that this was a marketing ploy by Columbia Records, which is the theory that I believe most of all.
Yeah.
Reportedly, in April of 2005, so 10 years after the whole release of this thing, 9 I guess, Nick Mason, who I guess is the only member of Pink Floyd that would ever talk to anybody, because that's where all the quotes come from. It's all the references.
Or he's the only one who talked about it.
Maybe, I don't know. He had written this biographical book called Inside Out, A Personal History of Pink Floyd. Apparently, he was at a book signing and somebody asked him about it, and he said, yeah, the Publius Enigma does exist, but it had no involvement in it. And the prize was said to have been something like a crop of trees planted in the clear-cut area of a forest or something like that.
Something really crappy.
Yes, a really crappy prize, yeah.
Well, something actually, I think that's a joke, It's like, you win it and they just show you a photograph of a clear cut that's been replanted.
Mm-hmm. And they're like, here you
They
go.
tell you, here you go, this is your prize. Aren't you happy?
Well, it's similar to what Uncle Custard said the prize was, right? Was like complimentary entry to Mensa.
Yeah.
And some dry ice.
Some dry
Yeah.
Like, great. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So the quote that is attributed to Nick Mason about this is, the ploy was done by EMI. They had a man working for them who adored puzzles. He was working for EMI and suggested that a puzzle be created that could be followed on the web. The prize was never given out, and to this day it remains unsolved.
And frankly, the puzzle for me is, what was the puzzle?
Yeah, I hear you.
I know I said that already, but I feel it bears repeating.
You
Like
have
12 times, apparently.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. There had been a different interview with the Pink Floyd lighting and production designer, whose name is Mark Brickman. He was apparently the person who was responsible for putting Enigma Publius in the lights.
Publius.
Publius.
Yeah.
I like Publius because it sounds more like poop.
I like Publius because it sounds like I'm going to go to the pub.
All right, fair enough. Yeah. Mark was responsible for putting the lights up, and he basically said that it was some CIA or FBI guy.
Some encryption guy.
Yeah, who, what intentionally made it so there was no real mystery and no real solvable anything, and it wasn't really traced. But, however, later, Mark did recant. He said, I did never say any of that in that interview. Basically accused the interviewer of having made up that entire statement.
Quote.
Yeah.
Well, it is kind of an incomprehensible quote, so maybe it was made up.
It could have totally been made up.
When you try and read it verbatim.
Yeah. So I think marketing ploy is the most likely of these. But I will say, Storm Thurgerson, who was a longtime Pink Floyd collaborator, famously once said, quote, rumors are only true when denied. So, the denial, Pink Floyd continuing to deny that they had no personal involvement in it maybe means they actually did have some sort of personal involvement in it. Just only because I know that they did love kind of toying with people.
They did, but I really feel like that's an easy answer, but I also feel like the whole answer to this thing is just read and interpret our lyrics, because everybody reads and interprets these things differently, and that's what you find on the internet.
Totally.
I can read a passage of Thoreau and take it one way, and you can read it and take it in a slightly different way.
Oh,
Or a totally different way.
Or a
even.
totally different way.
Yeah.
And and that's what it is when you read stuff like that, because it's not linear.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be a linear thought.
Which I don't think, really, which to me means unless they had some encrypted message in their lyrics, which is possible.
It is possible.
Unless they had that, if we want to just read the words and discern the meaning, well, like you say, it's subjective. So that's really not a valid mystery
That's
or
bad.
puzzle.
Yeah,
Agreed.
that's a bad puzzle.
At all.
Totally agree.
It's not at all. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
I just think it's a really interesting thing. I don't know why it grabbed me so much, because I did do, you may not know by the length of this episode, but I did so much research and
You did.
and watching and listening
weeks of it.
hours and hours of it.
Yeah.
Full
Minutes and
seconds
minutes of-
even. Yeah. But it is interesting to me for sure, and I hope that it is interesting to at least some of our listeners, and that they'll go do their own research and it'll engage some sort of conversation.
So while I will agree that